But by 1944, the tide was turning against the Japanese, and in 1945, Russia entered the war. They swept through Manchuria towards Pingfan. The advance was too rapid, even for the germ weapons Ishii was stockpiling, to be mobilized against them. All evidence of the horrific work at Pingfan had to be destroyed.
First priority was the disposal of the Maruta material. After they had all been killed, their remains were incinerated. Then, for the disposal of the pathological specimens, there was special incineration equipment, but its capacity was inadequate for the job. So some of the specimens were transported to the incineration plant in Harbin. After that, each barracks was set alight, which was the job assigned to me, and all important buildings in Pingfan were destroyed by explosives laid down by a sapper unit called in especially to assist us. A small section was left behind to verify that everything had been satisfactorily destroyed.
After the prisoners had been killed and the documents destroyed, all the members of Unit 731 were issued with cyanide capsules. They were ordered to use them if they were captured. The secret of secrets had to be kept. In August 1945, the war was ended, not by a biological weapon, but by an atomic bomb. The destruction of Pingfan was complete, and Ishii and his men mingled with the retreating armies to hide from justice. On September 2nd, 1945, aboard the battleship Missouri in Tokyo Bay, the United States accepted the unconditional surrender of the Japanese forces. A time then for justice, and amid the chaos of a defeated Japan, the Allies hunted for the Japanese who should be brought to trial. Ishii and his men hid and waited. Surprisingly, Ishii was hopeful. He knew the unique scientific value of the work he'd done, and he guessed correctly that America and Russia would want it.
The most technically advanced country in bacterial technology was Russia, followed by Germany and then Japan. These three countries were very progressive in this field, but America, and of course England, were not so advanced. America desperately wanted to acquire as much knowledge as possible about bacterial technology.
So even as the occupying troops arrived in Japan, Unit 731 drew up a plan to trade this valuable information. The linchpin was an English-speaking member of the unit, Lieutenant Colonel Ryohi Naito. Somehow, Naito found out which American officer would be in charge of investigating germ warfare. He got a photograph of the man, Colonel Murray Sanders, and he was waiting when the ship carrying Sanders arrived in Japan.
My mission was biological warfare. I was to find what the Japanese had done. And when the Sturgis docked dockside at Yokohama, there was Dr. Naito. He came straight toward me. He seemed to have had a photograph of me and said that he was my interpreter.
Did you at that time know that he was a member of Unit 731?
I didn't even know what 731 was. Apparently he was a very humble, shy person, very careful, went home every night, came back early the next morning. If you're interested, I found out later that he didn't go home, but went to the various Japanese headquarters.
To sort out the information that they were going to give you the next day?
Right. And to report on the progress of our mission.
Was it his job to see to it that you didn't learn too much?
Absolutely.
So Sanders and Naito engaged in a game of bluff and double bluff. The American threatened the Japanese.
I said, not only would I be replaced by an extremely tough man, but that this would also put the communists in the picture. Now, I said that because the Japanese exhibited a deadly fear of the communists, and they certainly didn't want them messing around. He appeared the next morning early with a manuscript which contained startling material. It was fundamentally dynamite. This said, in essence, that the Japanese were involved in biological warfare.
Naito also set out the entire chain of command for the war criminals of Unit 731.
He laid out a table of organization which started with the Emperor and branched off into the various departments: War Department, Chiefs of Staff, Medical Affairs Department, and so forth. All of them implicated plus or minus.
Do you believe that the Emperor was aware of the work of Unit 731?
I think he must have known something, because the budget was very large, and the people involved were top level.
A document held in Japan's military archives reveals that the unit was formed by imperial decree. That is, the Emperor's seal is on the document. We also know that the Emperor's brother, Prince MacArthur, visited Ping-Fan. More than that, the Emperor himself went to Manchuria at least once, in 1939, when the work of Ping-Fan was at its height. Certainly, he must have known about the garrison at Ping-Fan. But did he know of the human experiments?
In the Japanese system, reports on important research would have been circulated to all in the cycle, and intermediate termination of the flow is inconceivable. I appreciate, therefore, that there was much discussion about the responsibility of the Emperor. But myself, I think it is ridiculous to believe that such information was not circulated to the Emperor.
There was a comprehensive attempt to conceal the truth from the Allies. In the document Naito gave Colonel Sanders, there's a note tacked on the end. Sanders wrote, "I've asked Dr. Naito whether prisoners of war were used as guinea pigs. He vows this has not been the case." But did even Sanders, desperate for information, believe it?
For a very short time.
Did it, in a way, suit you to believe him when he said he didn't use human beings as guinea pigs?
Well, it made it easier for me to be friends with him.
But did it also make it easier for you to protect him, in a way?
Yes, by all means.
Believing Naito freed Sanders from moral constraints. He formulated an agreement.
I looked on this document as the opening of a gate. It showed me where I could go and what to do.
Sanders took the document directly to General MacArthur. He suggested the deal to MacArthur. The Allies wanted the information from Unit 731, so could he offer immunity from prosecution in return for the Japanese data?
He said, well, if you feel you cannot get all the information, we are not given to torture. There's nothing we can do about it.
So offer them the deal.
So we offer him the promise, as coming from General MacArthur, and get the data. I went back to Naito and told him that we would not prosecute. I had General MacArthur's word for it. BW workers as war criminals. This made a deep impression, and the data came in waves after that.
Thick and fast.
Thick and fast. We could hardly keep up with it.